So, Sheriff, I want to talk to you about this arrest of this now former paramedic. You guys believe that there is possibly more victims out there who haven't come forward?
Well, we would find it very surprising that he did this only one time. And this is a 3-year-old case where the victim didn't even know she was attacked until we contacted her. And we know Daytona Beach Police Department has an active investigation. So, there's plenty of indicators that there are more victims. And what he was doing is so disgusting. In our case, a helpless, unconscious individual that paramedics were called for, and you expect them to provide emergency medical care while they're being transported to the hospital. And instead, he took advantage of that. Well, Flagler County Fire Rescue transports hundreds of people a year. And so the likelihood that there are other victims out there that may not even know that they were victimized, I think is pretty strong.
Do you think too, I hate to say this, but do you think, or ask this, but do you think that this puts a black eye on the profession of paramedics? Because now, the next time a woman is transported, or women in general may think that, hey, if I'm unconscious or if I'm not in the right state of mind, this could easily happen.
Well, sure it does, but I think it's important to remember that, in my opinion, 99.9% of first responders, whether they're firefighters, paramedics, or law enforcement, are dedicated public servants and only want to do the right thing for that person in crisis at the time. But once in a while, you get a rotten apple, and this is a rotten apple that needs to be buried under the jail and the keys thrown away. And but what I would suggest to people that need help, they still need to call. If there is a family member or a friend, if you're being transported to the hospital, if the ambulance service will allow that person to ride in the ambulance with you, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't because of the seriousness of the injury or the illness, do that. That just protects you more. But I think the real key is that this is an unusual event. First time I've heard of this in my career, that someone was assaulted in the back of an ambulance while going to a hospital. And so
Someone who was unconscious that wouldn't have even known what was going on until years later after this video surfaced.
that's correct. And I mean, she was shocked when our detectives went to her to tell her, because she had no idea that this had occurred, because she was unconscious. And this paramedic took advantage of that opportunity to assault her. And then on top of that, videotaped it. Now, Eric, think of this. If he had not videotaped that, this victim in the sheriff's office would not have even known this occurred. That video just surfaced during another investigation by another agency. They didn't know who the victim was. And through investigative means, our detectives were able to determine who the victim was and reached out and contacted her. And so, it was just fortunate that we were able to identify her and that this video even surfaced because of another criminal investigation by another law enforcement agency.
You
So
just
there's
gave
no
some
telling.
you just gave
I'm
some
sorry.
really good advice too for family members and friends. Can you just say that one more time about how, one way that you can protect a loved one or a friend, if the paramedics will allow it to be able to actually ride along. Can you kind of reiterate that again? Because I think that may strike home to a lot of people, who may not realize that, there are those opportunities to be able to do that and offer that level of protection, or at least be able to watch over what's happening.
Sure. So one of the ways you can protect yourself, if the ambulance service allows it, every ambulance service operates differently, is sometimes they will allow a family member or a friend to ride in the ambulance in the back with the patient. They don't always allow that. But if they do allow that and you can do that, then that's another added layer of protection, especially if it's an unconscious individual. An alternative to that, if you can legally follow the ambulance, in other words, you can't run red lights and stuff, but if you can follow the ambulance, at least the paramedic in the back of the ambulance knows someone's watching and following them. Now, you're not going to be able to likely see inside the ambulance, so that's not as foolproof safe as someone back in the ambulance with the paramedic. But it's really up to the ambulance service on whether or not they will allow that.
I understand the victim in this case no longer lives in Flagler County.
That's correct.
And this other investigation, I don't know what you're privy to in terms of this other investigation. Is this an actual sexual assault or another voyeurism investigation that's going on?
Yeah, Eric, I can't go into that because it's an active investigation by Daytona Beach Police Department, and I don't want to damage their investigation.
But either way,
I'm sure it will.
But the way you
I'm
look
sure
at
it
it,
will come out at some point.
but either way, the way that you look at it is, hey, you guys have a case against him. There's an investigation against him for something sexual in nature, and you're like you said, there's most likely more victims because this is probably not the very first time that he's maybe gotten away with this.
Yeah, that would be, that's pure speculation on my part. There's more victims out there, but and you guys haven't seen the video because we can't release it, but um, it did not appear to us this would be his first attempt to do this. And so while we have not found any other videos at this point, we think that there are more investigations out there. It's just very unlikely that, this individual did one attack and then changed their mind, said, oh, this wasn't as gratifying as I thought it would be, and I'm not going to do this anymore. With sex offenders and perverts, it's usually not a one and done. It's usually there's multiple cases.
This will be the last question because I know, like you said, you just brought up you've seen the video yourself. What was your initial reaction when you saw? Maybe what was you've seen the video. What was your initial reaction when you saw that video?
Well, let me say that I have not seen the video. My detectives obviously have seen it, but I was briefed on this case. And
Let me just add, let me re-ask you that in a different way. Based on what detectives have told you they have seen in this video, what was your reaction?
Oh, this is unfathomable attack and a disgusting attack on a helpless individual that called for medical emergency services. Actually, she didn't even call. It was another individual that called because she was unconscious. And to take advantage of this, tarnish the badge that they wear, tarnish the agency that they work for, and the community is just disgusting. And I hope the prosecution and the courts will recognize what he has done and the damage he has done, because people are likely to be concerned now to call and, for help. And then, people could die as a result or suffer more serious injuries. And he needs to pay a heavy price for that. These are serious felonies. One charge alone is up to 30 years in prison, and I hope he gets every bit of that.
Gotcha. Sheriff Staly, thank you once again for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
All right. Anytime, Eric. Take
All right,
care.
man.
All right. Bye.